Mike Snyder, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Mikey. I always appreciate it.
Yeah, I think we're both excited about this week's topic because so far you and we've pretty much always just been discussing fat loss strategies, how to get shredded, things like that. Pretty much everything having to do with losing body fat. We've not spent time talking about what is really the most important part, which is how to actually maximize muscle growth, like what to do to build the most amount of muscle that you can possibly build. So let's talk about it, man. You and
Yeah.
I were both. How long have you been in your off season for?
Are you talking generally or like kind of like since my last show or
Generally? Yeah, yeah.
generally?
You know what? Since your last show and generally, yeah. Let's do both.
So
That's important.
I've been competing quite some time. It's probably been
Okay.
about 5 years. No, 4 years. But
Okay.
yeah, the last diet I did
2020.
was
So you competed in 2020 or 2019?
2019, August of
Okay. Gotcha.
2019. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And but last diet I've done, like, because we all know it goes in cycles, right?
Mhm.
In terms of the times and
Build cut.
phases.
You're talking about build cut, build cut. Yeah,
hmm
yeah.
Last one I did, last diet I did was over the summer into September. So that was the
Okay.
last like
So how
cut
long
I
did you
actually
cut
did.
for?
I cut from April, no, from May to September, the beginning of September.
5 months.
Yep.
Okay, so other
Yep.
than 5 months, which we'll
Th-
call this like a mini cut just to kind
Yes.
of make sure you're not getting too heavy, is give
hmm
yourself more room to grow, right?
Right. Right.
Other than that, you've been in your off season since 2019. So
Yep, that's
perfect.
correct.
That's awesome. I like a 3 to 5 year off season myself. I've done back-to-back shows when I first started, and when you first get into the sport, you're like, I want to compete every
Like
year,
every
like
year, yeah.
every year, because you don't know what it takes to grow at that beginner level. And you've just been lean for the first time, and now you're seeing it go away, and you're like, am I ever going to get this back? I want to stay lean. I
Yeah.
want to do this again. And this experience was fun. So I don't ever recommend doing a back to back season.
I don't
I
either.
did it
Not
and
as a
it was
natural.
rough. Yeah, it was rough. It was rough. But after that, I do a 3 minimum 3 to 5 year off season. It just takes that long to grow.
You're
It just
exactly
take as a
right. And
natural this process of growing muscle outside of when you first start building. Yeah, you're building like pound a month, when you first get going. It's an amazing experience. But once you get past the first year or two, things start to really slow up. And the longer you do it, the longer it takes to grow. So
mhm.
that's why doing a sufficient off season that's the most important thing for being a competitor. It's different if you want to compete for fun. If you want to compete for fun and you're just doing this to do it, I don't really have any guidelines for you. Just go have a good time. But if you're looking to optimize and build the most amount of muscle you can over the course of years and decades, taking the time off from competing, taking the time away from getting lean and being in a surplus, this is where the magic happens, man.
Exactly. Yeah, I
Right.
feel like that long off seasons that like I think if you want to be competitive and you want to bring your best because like we get into this and I think be as deep into this because we want to be our best and we want to improve every year. And I think that's or every time we go to diet
Yeah.
again and see the results, like I definitely think that, the longer of the off season, the better the investment for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, you can't really keep getting shredded every year and maintain muscle. You will start to actually regress. And
Yeah, look worse.
that's
Oh
why,
yeah.
yes, yeah, exactly. So you look flatter, you look smaller, each year you're not looking better, you're actually looking worse. So let's talk about some things that we do, that we advise our clients to do. And let's just talk about some of the most important things for optimizing muscle growth. So, do you want to start with, let's start with nutrition, some things that we look
Mhm.
for with nutrition, and then we can go into training, mindset, because there's all of these different tiers of things. They're all super important. So this isn't in any like order of importance. This is just some of the things that we look for during an effective off season. So let's talk about diet. What are some things that you look for with the nutrition side of things during the off season?
Yeah, so essentially what I kind of like to do with when clients whenever they're going into like a gaining phase per se,
Yeah.
I don't like to change too much from the protein sides of things. Like I like to keep everything stable from that end, but a slow trickling, and this is different on everyone, but
Mm,
kind of based on how our pictures are looking, how the scale is responding. I do like to just trickle in some mainly carbs, but
mm.
definitely some amounts of fats to couple with that is definitely going to be key as we go. But like I said, that looks a little different on everyone, and
Yeah.
some people can handle high amounts of food. Some people, can only tolerate small bumps in food.
Yeah.
But I think just like seeing, because at the end of the day, we don't want to just put on fat. We want to put on some quality muscle that's going to come with some fat gain, but we want to minimize that,
Yeah, if you get too
the
fat, you got to
effects.
take that fat off and you're going to
Yeah.
lose muscle in that process. So
Yes.
the goal is
Exactly.
what? Minimal fat with max amount of muscle growth.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
And you want to, and I think what I always tell people too is before you get into this, before we go into this phase, know that you want to make this phase last as long as it can because this is the marinating phase. This is where we're making the quality
Yeah.
tissue. Like, so you don't want to pull the reins too fast and be like, well, I'm just gonna, it's my off season. Screw it. I'm gonna just totally go all out and eat a ton of food like right off the get-go and keep that up. Well, that's gonna create some bad habits. You're gonna put on
Man,
too much fat too
yeah.
quickly, and you're done right before you even start. Like it's
Yeah,
just,
the off season, so what tends to happen if you this is kind of more mindset, but I want to talk about it. When people are cutting, people are like that switch is on. They're all in because there's a deadline. They're motivated externally. The show's coming up. They're like, I want to, I have to get on stage. So they're all in. When the off season comes and there's no show in sight, let alone, 5 years down the line, oh, I got time. What ends up happening is people like approach the off season as like they're just not even bodybuilders. Like they're just not really tracking. They're not really monitoring their training sessions. They're just going to the gym, living life, which is fine if you're doing this for fun. But if you're a competitor, this is the time for that switch to be on.
mhm,
During the off season is where you make your improvements.
right.
So staying focused during the off season and making sure all these boxes are checked when you're actually positioned to grow muscle tissue, that's when that's when the magic happens during this off season. So it's difficult for some people when there's nothing like immediately in front of them.
Right.
Do you see that as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah, like there's no end goal in place, so
Mhm.
it's more along the lines of like what, yeah, we want to build muscle, and that can be, what's the word I'm looking for? That could be very generalized, like too generalized per se. And
Yeah.
I feel like when people don't have that end goal, as you were talking about, it just makes that discipline and motivation fade slightly. So I think just like really I think this is the time to really focus rather on an end goal date, but more so like, hey, let's try to get a PR on this on the squat, on the hack squats, or really focus our goals more performance related. I think that
Yeah.
helps. I think that really that drive that when I initially started into like I come from a background, learning how to eat before like learning what we know now, like eating clean, diet, get
Yeah.
shredded, never put on muscle. Like when I first approached my first like massing phase or muscle building phase, I really hit home with let's progress the performance. Let's
Yeah.
really focus on that because I feel as if you can do that, that makes that only that really can derive your love for training. And I feel like that's where a lot of people fall in love with like the shredded pictures on stage, but they don't fall in love with what it takes to get there, which I really think is
Because it
two
doesn't look
things.
impressive, like
Yeah.
especially like as a natural, like
Hmm.
your off-season look, like when you're in the peak off-season, you may fill out your shirts. It really depends on your genetics. Some people look impressive, but some people just don't look impressive in the off-season.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
like when you take your shirt off, you're I mean, your muscles are under there, but you
right.
got some body fat on you, so you don't look as impressive in a social media standard, you know?
Right.
Like my dad always tells me, he's like, man, Mike, I really like the way you look in the off season, way better than, way
My
better
my
than,
family does the same thing, dude.
yeah. I'm like,
They love
yeah,
it.
yeah. And he always tells me that when I'm shredded too. So I'm like, thanks for the input. I know. Because he's like, oh, you got big arms and your shoulders look good when you're when you're all emaciated in
You look
prep.
sick. Yeah.
You look sick, but when you take your shirt off, you look awesome. And that looks
Yeah.
bigger than you do in your off season. People
Yep.
like clock me in when I'm diced at 140, they clock me in at my peak off season weight. But when I'm in my peak off season weight, it's not like that. So I think that it's just way more appealing, especially these days, to
Yes.
look good on social media. And I don't think, I know that hinders people a lot. It wasn't so much like that when before it was Instagram, it was like summer. Oh, I want to cut for summer, which we'll get into that kind of thing. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but now it's like I want to look good for Instagram. Well, it's
Right.
if you want to look good for Instagram, that's going to impede on your growth because you're staying leaner more frequently and you're not growing.
Exactly.
So that's a whole different thing, but also it's super relevant because most bodybuilders are on social media, I think, doing some form of something. And so you do get more eyes on you when you're leaner because it's just more impressive.
Right.
So showing restraint when the urge is there to cut because you don't feel like you look impressive, that's one of the biggest parts of being a successful bodybuilder, making constant and consistent improvements to your physique is not cutting for the wedding that's coming up, not cutting for beach season, not cutting for Instagram, restraining because you have the end goal in mind. You're thinking big picture. That's small picture stuff.
Right.
When there is a wedding coming up or there's a function, first off, nobody cares what you look
Mm-mm.
like.
No one.
Rest assured, if you're getting anxious about looking good for a wedding or reunion, nobody cares about what you look like. I find the older I get, the more I realize nobody cares about anything but themselves. They're focused on themselves. How do they look?
Right.
What's going on in their world? It's like, have you ever noticed like if you have to give like a speech at a wedding or something and public speaking is like nerve wracking and people can get really nervous about it. Have you ever, when someone's at a giving a speech, have you ever cared?
No,
You don't
honestly.
care. You're like,
No.
let's wrap this up so we can get to the bar and food and all
Yep.
this stuff, have a good time. So everyone is just putting this internal pressure on themselves when in reality, nobody gives a shit. So
No.
that's something that comes, I think, with time and experience and also thinking big picture. All of these strategies that we're going to be talking about, we're thinking big picture, long term. How do we optimize and make the most out of everything over the long term? Because this process, it's not a weekly process. It's not a
Mhm.
monthly process. This is a process that comes in the course of years and decades, literally decades.
It's a
So
long game.
it's the long game for men and for women.
Mhm.
So it can be painfully slow, but at the same time, it's noticeable. So when you take a look at yourself, I think this is why taking progress photos is so important,
Super
because
important.
it may feel like you're not making progress until you go back and look at the video that Facebook memory shows of you. It only shows it to you, and it's you squatting, and it's 2015 and or 2016, and you see that video and you go, holy shit, I am a completely different animal now. Okay, we're making progress, but when you're thinking about it, you're not feeling like you're making progress. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, for sure, man. I can't tell you how many videos I look back on and I'm like, wow, I was just dropping
Yeah.
down in the hole and squat. I have a video from like 2012 of me squatting down 300 pounds for reps, but man, those reps
Oh,
look terrible.
I
Like
know
they
that
were so
feeling.
fast, so uncontrolled. Like, and now I look and I'm like, wow, I'm doing not just more weight than that, but I'm doing it with much better control, likely more muscle mass, like way more
Yeah.
definitively more muscle, and
Yeah.
just much. I'm a much more responsible lifter now. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
It
just
takes
looking back,
time to
it's
even like build the neural pathways
mhm.
to connect with your muscles.
Oh, for
I
sure,
mean,
100%.
form is never really perfect. I've noticed my form over the years is always changing, especially on things like squats. That's a
Yeah.
big one. I used to feel we're getting into training now. We'll go back to diet, but I used to feel all my squats in my adductors, in my hips, dude. I was just dropping so low and feeling everything. I wasn't feeling it in my quads. And
No.
I wasn't thinking of the squat as a quad movement, really. I was thinking of it as like hamstring, glutes, all these different
Glutes.
things. Once I was like, okay, I need to lighten the weight and get get connected with my quads and turn this into a quad, because I'm trying to work my quad. I mean, really, that's what, in my
Ultimately,
opinion,
that's what
a
we're
squat.
looking
That's what
for.
I'm looking
Yeah.
for out of a squat.
Yep.
Glutes. I mean, I don't mind getting glute work, but hip thrusters and glute kickbacks. I mean, that's really what those are for.
Right.
But I'm trying to get big ass quads by squatting. That's what I'm trying to do. And
Right.
so until I lightened the weight and then stopped going so deep with my squats, that's when I started feeling those squats like this is how you're supposed to feel squats. And then I was able to slowly start bumping the weight back up. And now my squat is as good as it's ever been. I prefer squats on a Smith machine. You and I have
I
talked
do
about this
too.
before. I just,
Yes.
the barbell, I feel it's just more of a balancing act. I feel it more, I feel it more in my glutes, in my hips, things like this. Smith machine, all muscle, dude.
Yeah,
All
you could totally
muscle.
bias it towards anything you want it to, and that's the
And I
best
can
part about it.
train harder on it. I
Hmm.
can really train until I hook the weight back on. Like I know when I'm going down on this last one, I'm like, okay, I'm not coming back up on this. I already know I'm not coming back up on this. So I'm
Yep.
prepared to hook it. So you can push yourself to a whole nother level of failure. And in my opinion, that's a win. That's a huge win. So
100%.
that's we'll get more into training. But these are the things you should be working on during the off season.
Hmm. 100%.
Getting in
Yeah.
touch with training. It's hard to activate and get pumps and things like that when you're cutting. So the time to do it is in the off season. That's where you're really kind of getting that practice in. So that time, by the time you're ready to cut, you're in the best spot possible with even things as detailed as connecting with the muscle groups that you're trying to work. It's
It's
hard to
like
do all that
studying,
stuff when you're
man.
cutting.
Yeah. It's like studying. Like
Yep.
you don't just walk into a test and take it. You study for it. Like
Mhm.
that, your off season studying. You're studying for the big day. And
What did you say when we were talking about food estimating? Oh, weighing your food is practice for the big game. I like the
mhm,
analogy that you used. You used weighing your food, that's practice for the big game. So when you go to dine out and you're looking at these estimates and portions, you
you're
can
good,
go, because of seeing all of those portion sizes all the times that you weighed your food.
right? You're
And that's why you do
confident
such a
and
good job with your estimating.
right. It just takes the reps, man, and that's what
Yep.
honestly that's what it all comes down to. In any analogy here, it's
Yeah.
reps, nothing but reps, tons of reps,
Tons of reps, tons of reps. And you just get better at this stuff over time.
100%.
So okay, so you touched on some good stuff. So protein, let's give an example. What do you look for? Gram per pound of body weight? I mean, I think that's like pretty standard. I like a gram per pound, but I mean, I got no problem going a little bit over that.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, 1 to 1.2, but I mean per gram of pound of body weight. But I mean,
Yeah.
if lean mass, I guess.
Right.
I typically, honestly, I like to go a little higher too. So like a pound and like 1.5 grams per pound, even in a gaining phase, because what I'm coming to find is there's a lot of not only just people like when they consume like a gram per pound of body weight they carry, if they're doing that during a massing phase or a gaining phase, they essentially, that protein can come from like other sources too, like your
Yeah.
breads, like your pastas and stuff. Like, so I feel like putting it to a gram and a half, or putting it up on the higher end,
Covers the spread.
yeah, it covers the spread. It gets you a little more quality protein sources that you have to look for to get in. And I feel like I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not the biggest guy. I feel like a higher protein intake benefits me from a personal standpoint, and other people I work with similar body compositions that if a higher amount of protein may not saying it's definitively may elicit more muscle growth just because we're getting more quality protein sources in over time. So I feel like that it can benefit someone who might be very from a person that may not be able to easily build muscle mass. A higher protein intake may benefit you even in an off season.
100%. And I like to, I'm with you on the gram to even a gram and a half, depending. I like to push protein. So I like to increase
Hmm.
everything. So partition things in the best way possible post cut, you know, in that situation, as long as protein's there where, it's a gram per pound. And from there, you're like, okay, let's bump these carbs and fats up. But then as things start to progress and go up, throw in an extra 5 grams of protein
Yeah,
as the off season continues. By the peak of your off season, all of your food numbers should be at their highest point. That's your protein too. So protein, carbs, fats. So I like to see fats like 65 to 75 grams of fats. I think that's a really good number, but continue pushing that number if you need to.
right.
Obviously the fats, that's good for testosterone. That's going to have a
Yes.
significant impact on your testosterone. So I don't like to have fats low. They're one I like to bump those up right
Right.
out the gate.
Yeah, I typically even like towards the end of a dieting phase with a client, like dropping them below 50 sometimes. I mean, if you
You
have
got to
to in
do
the
what you got to
competition
do.
prep,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to do what you got to do. But I mean, I don't like to spend too much time below anywhere 45 to 50. I don't like to spend a ton of time below that
And
just
then
because,
carbs like 100 going below 100
yeah,
that's
it's
when
just
things start to get a little like
like you,
sketchy.
yeah, like the
Yeah.
biofeedback and everything, it just starts to really dwindle big time on people. So I think that, yeah, just maintaining sanity and health markers, I think definitely staying above those numbers for
Yeah.
even your goals, just generally, losing fat. That's another conversation, but like, yeah, typically that's like the lowest
Right.
endpoint. Typically, I like to start from when I'm building someone's calories back up.
Right. Yeah. So, and then carbs, I like to push carbs. So carbs,
Mhm.
they're the flexible macronutrient. So I like to get those carbs up as high
Yes.
as possible as well. What are your current, let's talk about even our current numbers. Like what are your current numbers at right now?
Yeah,
Just to give an example.
I have to look at them because I like so I'm currently sitting at 33, like around 30 300 calories. I got 410 grams of carbs per day, 240 protein, and 73 fat. So
How many
nearing
carbs?
410.
Perfect. Okay, so
Yeah,
that's awesome. We're pretty close on our numbers. So the more stuff that you do, like the busier a person is, and the more they're out doing and working and moving, the higher their calories are going to go.
right.
So if someone's at an office job or they're at home, they're working from home, their calories, they're going to require less, and they're going to be the same growth. You just have to push the calories higher while you're more on the move because you're just burning more calories, right?
Right.
So typically you probably see when you're less busy that you can't have as high a calories, whereas during your busier times, me for
It's like,
example, like during the summer busier time, I'm able to get more frequent food changes because of just being busier, being on my feet more, being
right.
out more. People, even when they're parking their car, tend to park closer to the entrance while it's cold outside.
Hmm.
So that
Yep.
stuff all adds up because you just don't burn that many calories in the gym. So most of your
Right.
burned calories are coming from everything that you're doing outside of the gym. So let's talk about good examples to get food in while you're full. I think that's important. I
Oh,
think
super important.
having food like food sources, I think that's where a lot of people run into trouble because they just don't know what the hell to eat. So they run into trouble like, okay, how am I going to get all this food in? Personally, I don't have a problem with this because I even in the off season, my appetite is I could always eat more. Even when I'm gaining weight. Like even when I'm gaining weight, I could always like when I finish my last meal of the day, I'm always like, oh man, I could go for a little bit more. I could go for a little bit more. How about you? Like what's your
Oh,
appetite like on a regular
dude.
basis?
So it honestly, it's pretty consistent as well. Like I'm never uncomfortably full. But I'm also at the same time like I always say I'm gonna 8 out of 10 for the night. Like once I finish my calories, I'm like I still have room if I really
You always
wanted
have
to.
room. Yeah.
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 So I
Okay.
feel like I could always push it, and that's the thing. Like it's crazy because like I'll feel the same if I'm just like in a diet too sometimes, like to a point. Like to a point in the diet, like if I'm just like mini cutting and stuff, like I feel the same that way too. But yeah,
And well, yeah, I would assume that you're probably like more out of an eight to 10. I would think that in a cutting phase, you're
eventually.
like, yeah, eventually
Eventually.
it's going to be
Yeah.
a 10 out
But
of
if
10.
that's why I like the benefit of high protein intakes because it really does help control some things to it. Like I said, to a point. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's funny. I just never have a problem with getting. I was even towards the end of a bulk like or a gaining phase. It's like, man, I'm still okay. I still can
Yeah.
eat. I'm not
Yeah.
sick yet. I'm not
No.
that I want to be sick, but
That's the fun part. That's the part
mhm.
where so let's talk about like protein. Let's start with protein. We go carbs, fats. Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want to give people really good examples of
for sure.
what we do, what we recommend, so we could tell them, okay, this is just how we approach things. We could,
Hmm.
give some good examples. So maybe people can use the suggestions. So
Yeah.
protein sources. What are your like go-to protein sources?
Dude, oh man, off season protein sources probably starts with I don't change a ton, but some I do. Now, the first one I start with is a good protein powder. And I actually love using this stuff. I use like the PE Science protein powder.
Uh-huh.
I think it mixes well into things because at the end of the day, a lot of people are going to have trouble getting in food because they're so full.
How many
So I
protein
think
shakes will you have a day?
oh, dude, as many as it takes sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it could range from I wouldn't even call them protein shakes. To be honest, honestly, I do it a little differently. I like making protein sludge, man. I love it.
Even in the
It's
off-season protein
even in the
sludge?
off
Okay.
season. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I'll make like
My
dips out of
sludges
it,
tend
and
to go away in the
as
off
you,
season
yeah,
as I start to feel more normal. My sludges they're all in the cut.
in the
But
prep.
when
Yeah,
yeah, when calories are
are
scarce.
low. Yeah, I like
But
to
during the
use
off
it.
season, my sludges, it's like I don't like rice cakes. I won't see another one until prep, whenever that
Goodbye,
is.
Quaker. Yeah, yeah. So
Goodbye.
they
You've been good to me.
yeah, yeah. No, I like to use. I still do it for like I mix. I'll do like sludge at the end of the day if I'm like like slacking on the protein.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that you can't just do something like that, but just in shake form. Like if I'm on the go and I don't have time to sit there and eat it, like I will have shakes. But yeah,
Like,
man, I mix
excuse
it
me,
up.
I'm in a
Yeah.
meeting, but I need to eat my sludge.
Hang on, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's no, I put it in cream of rice a lot. I like to eat cream of rice just because it digests well and stuff. It's a good carb source. That's not all
Uh-huh.
being the carbs, but I
Yeah.
mix a lot with that and protein and I get a big bolus in there. But that's just one source. So that I eat a lot of protein bars. I eat it like I'm not gonna sit
Yeah.
here and lie and say I don't.
On the go,
I
man. When
yeah.
you're on the go, man, protein bars
Mhm.
are amazing.
Dude, oh, pure protein, sign me up, sponsor me, please. No, I'm just kidding.
Two at a
But
time, right? Like you need
with
two because those are 20 grams carb or 20 grams protein, right? So they're not
yeah,
30. So what, two at a time?
I'll do like I do a couple like the two pures. Like sometimes if I'm on the run, I'll just do two pure proteins post workout if I don't have
Yeah.
like a cream or rice bowl and I don't have time to sit there and eat. I'll utilize those Quest chips. I use egg whites in the morning if I have time to eat breakfast before if I don't have time to run out the
Do
door.
you
Like
think Quest chips really have
that amount
that
of protein in them.
amount of protein in them? Sometimes I'm a little scared. So they're like I like those a lot too, especially while I'm traveling or especially while I'm on the go.
Yep.
A bag of 2 bags of Quest chips. It's like you're eating potato chips
Yeah.
and you're getting 40 grams of protein and like 10 grams of carbs, like and like
Yeah.
barely any fat. So
Yep.
I mean that's so eat like for travel, for being in the car, for being on the go, like those are so good. But sometimes I question like the quality, like what kind of quality protein is in that like
Yeah. Like, is
chips.
it actually like solid whey in there? Is
I
it,
don't
I don't know,
know.
is it like chickpea protein? I don't know. Like, it's just,
My thing is
yeah,
sometimes if it's too good to be true,
it probably
most
is.
times yeah, most times. I remember there was this oh God, what was the brand? It was protein popcorn. And man, was this stuff good, dude. Oh, is it good? I'm talking tastes like gourmet popcorn. I can't think of the brand right now. They used to have it at the gym and people used to sell it online. Fucking I'm eating this stuff like it's going out of style, man. I'm just sitting there watching movies,
Like, this is
popcorn.
great.
Oh, and it
Fits
had all
in.
these, yeah, and it had all these different, unique flavors. So like,
Right.
obviously caramel corn, but then you're talking like white chocolate and all this stuff. So I
Oh,
mean,
jeez.
and it was loaded with protein and it was
Yeah.
thick and delicious. Dude, my weight starts spiking up like it, and because the calories were
Hmm.
super low on it. And I'm sitting there and I go, ah, man, my weight's been jumping up like crazy. I'm talking about like 3 pounds a week, like just going crazy. And then I'm thinking, I go, man, I knew this popcorn was too good to be true. This protein popcorn. So I pulled the protein popcorn, my weight drops back down. So they were lying about whatever the protein was, or whatever, not the protein, but whatever the calories in general were, because they were like super low calories on this popcorn. And it's like fitness popcorn too, like it's like marketed towards bodybuilders and people who are
Right.
cutting and things like that. And so yeah, I don't know whatever happened to that brand. I was kind of like it was one of those things where I knew going in, I was like, seems I'm suspicious.
Yeah,
And
it's
then,
just
and
suspect.
then
They
yeah, and
what
then
did they
I
have it
yeah,
like? Is there like was there like
hold
hidden
up.
fiber in them or something or like I don't
Hold
know
up.
like oh
I'm gonna look and see what the hell this brand what was this brand? Because that's gonna kill me. I guarantee Icon Meals. That's what it was.
oh no way
Yeah.
really
Um.
They were big too. They used
Yeah,
to be really
icon
well
meals.
known.
And cookies and cream. Yeah, this is the shit. Vanilla twist, vanilla twist. Like this stuff was like out of control good. And then oh, they're still selling it too. But I'm trying to see what the
Beware.
yeah, I wonder if they like also I mean it was pretty like when you get into those like treats, a lot
Hmm.
of times they're really expensive. Oh, they don't even show the nutrition facts on it. When they don't show the nutrition facts, that's probably a bad sign. But that stuff was so yeah, and I was like, oh man, like I was like, I was bummed out. I was like, God, I thought I found the holy grail of like protein treats.
Dude, I have a somewhat similar situation to this. So, my wife and I, we during COVID, we we really got in. I don't know why we got into them, but they were like Boca burgers. Have you ever had them, the veggie burgers?
Mhm, mhm.
We really enjoyed them. Like these taste great. And then I got like a box one time, and I just was curious. I was like, hey, look at the calories and stuff, and I was like, they were so low calories. Like, I find this hard to believe that these would be this amount. And then I did the math and I like customly put them in my tracker. And I'm like, yeah, they got to be like 80 calories. Well, per burger. So I'm instead of like 60. I'm like, there's no way they're that low. So like 2 months later, 2 months go by or so. We go to pick them up at the store and I look at the label. I'm like, huh, they must have got caught. They changed the
They
label to 80
updated it.
calories. Yeah. I'm like, they changed it. I'm like, so like, yeah, like nonetheless, moral of the story, do your homework. If
Is there
you,
anything worse than when you have a food and you're like, it's like one of the foods you've been plugging in for like forever and you look at the ingredient label and they switch up on you and you're like, oh man,
uh,
like I need to go in and like readjust this. And I had this all
uh,
planned. And how long have I been, because sometimes when I get the same food sources, I don't double check the ingredient
you
label.
just assume, right? You know?
Yeah, because I got like, I eat the same things over and over and over and over.
Yeah, as do
And
I.
then if
Yeah.
I want a little variety, a little treat, I'll throw something in. But other than that,
Yeah.
and I think most really successful but athletes do that. Like
Yes.
most
100%.
people are some pretty much routine. They have their
Hmm.
reliable sources, and then when they feel the need to change, that's when they switch it up.
Right.
I
Yeah.
feel like that makes for good sustainability, predictable results. I mean,
Yes.
predictability is a nice thing when you're especially when you're like adding in different food sources. If you're adding in different food sources all day every day, your weight's going to be less predictable than if you're eating the same thing across all your meals. Not that you have to be like, oh, chicken and rice or whatever. Like I said, if I want some mini glazed donuts, I'm going to throw those in,
Right.
which is another nice thing about the off season too, is sometimes you have to spread your wings a
Incorporate
little
those.
bit. Yes, like I'll give you a perfect example right now. Right before we got on here. So I went to the gym, I had my pre-workout meal. I went and trained, had a protein shake, and when I came back, I mean, we had to jump on, and I didn't have time to like cook a full meal. No, and my appetite wasn't like after I train legs. I don't know about you, my appetite is not there.
Yeah.
All the blood's in my legs, and I'm just not hungry. I feel a little nauseous, So I
You're
I have a protein shake right after I train, and then I'll usually go home, take a shower, maybe shoot off an email or two, and then by the time that happens, I'm like, okay, now I'll have like a big ass meal. My appetite's
right.
ready to rock. But I
Yeah.
didn't have time to make a production out of it today.
Yeah.
So I threw on so I had my protein shake, but then I threw on some mini glazed Hostess donuts and the little Debbie oatmeal cream pies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, threw that
Those are
on there.
great.
I I got some carbs, fats in my system, feeling good, ready to rock and record. And then when we're done, I'll have beef and vegetables and all these things. But let's say I didn't do that. And I ate something that was like berries and
Very
vegetables or
low.
whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, so that would leave me with so much more food for the rest of the day that I would have to like pile in a whole ton more food. Whereas like having these treats and reliable snacks to throw in when you need them. It's like it's a technique. So then you don't have to overload on. It's not good to just completely overload on vegetables and these like high fibrous foods all day. So having when your food is that high, in order to get it in, you have to throw in some treats.
I
So
agree.
yeah.
Yeah. I think
So
just minimizing them too. I mean, not minimizing your vegetable and fruit intake, but like keeping it at a responsible level where it's like,
yeah.
hey, this volume of vegetables and fruit I'm consuming is not, blunting my hunger and taking
Yeah.
up too much space. I
Works
say the
because
rule.
yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. I don't know. I typically when my food's right now it's this high, I see vegetables maybe one to two times a day. I try my best for 2 times a day for fruit and
Yeah.
vegetables. If mostly fruit's not hard because it's pretty like strawberries, berries. That's easy to get down. But like
Yeah.
I try to make my vegetable sources as easy, like green beans or something small to the point, and isn't going to be
I have a
big,
great
bigger
idea for you.
broccoli.
I have
No,
a
yeah.
great suggestion. Yes. Yes. I'm glad you brought this up. Okay, so since like it's funny because now we're talking about like optimizing everything, right? Like sometimes with
Mhm.
lifestyle, we're talking about like we you know how it is. Like you have to kind of force some of your not force, but parent some of your clients to actually eat a vegetable. Like
Yes.
eat some vegetables. So I have I think I told you about this. I have like a rule to myself. It's like a hard rule. 30 to 35 grams carbs, vegetables daily. Like variety of vegetables, that's what I like to see at a
Yeah.
minimum. At a minimum. So how I get these in is I'm not a big fan of just eating raw vegetables. And variety, like I like to see a lot of different colors. And all those different each one of those colors has a benefit. So I like to see multiple colors. Yellow, orange, green. So peas, carrots are great for your eyes. All these
Yes.
different vegetables have vitamins and minerals in them that provide a unique benefit. So but like you said, sometimes you don't feel like just eating like vegetables. Like it's a drag, and it's just your appetite. You have a lot of food to get in, so that kind of makes that more difficult.
Right.
I like to utilize tortillas and make things like tacos because a tortilla, if you put beef in a tortilla, so you're getting your protein in, the tortilla serves as a shuttle. I like to put the vegetables in there, make a wrap out of that. So you got beef, you got vegetables in there. Put whatever sauce on you want. I like to have a side of rice. Put that in there. Chop up some avocado. Throw that in there. That makes getting vegetables in. First off, it's not like you're having to stop eating and then move to your vegetables and eat. You're getting everything in one lump sum. So I
Right.
like to use tortillas as like literally like a shuttle to get the vegetables and the protein in, and they go down really easy. Same with rice. Like that rice, rice is very high in carbs, especially like jasmine rice or I really like sticky rice. There's like
Hmm.
it really digests super fast and you don't like feel it. So
Yeah.
you could take down 100 grams of carbs from rice and it's like nothing. Like that's like you're still hungry. It's like that old like why are you still hungry after you eat Chinese food? It's a lot of sticky rice.
Yeah, that's I love one reason I used to hate it up until I didn't like it till I was 29, but I love sushi, man. Sushi is a lot of sticky
Why did
rice.
it
Like,
take you till you were 29?
man, I don't know what
Sushi's like my favorite food.
it was like that transitional period. You know how
Yeah.
like they say every 7 years your taste buds kind of change. So it's like I feel as
Who
if
says
that
that?
I've heard that like tale. I don't know, but
That's like one of those like general like not an urban legend, but like it's like
folklore.
who made it like don't go eat before you go swimming. Just things that we've heard like
Yeah,
from
little
like
things. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, honestly though, like it's like there's things I can tell you I hated when I grew up that I'm like I absolutely love now. Hated pineapple, love it now. It's just yeah,
Pineapple's
it's just
awesome.
crazy, man. It's but
Yeah.
the sticky rice, man, I can eat that all day just because I've ate it with sushi like the past like year and a half. So they you brought up a good point too. With it's almost as if like we're it's a great strategy to, whenever you try to get your pet to your dog, or if you had a dog or something, to take its medicine, like you put it in peanut butter, right? You
Yeah,
put the
right,
pill in
right,
peanut
right.
butter. That's essentially what you're doing with the vegetables. You're putting that in the good stuff, and
Yeah.
you're shuttling it in, just like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that is good. Oh,
You're
but yeah,
tricking
that's
yourself.
I
Oh
kind of
my
thought
God.
of that.
I
I
forget.
thought of that.
Someone told me that oh my God, I forget who it was. Somebody told me that someone was they were eating their vegetables, but or no, they were like eating either vegetables or an apple or something. But in between the apple, they would sneak like an Oreo cookie bite, and then it had the apple again. And they were like trying to trick their body into like, oh, this must be an apple. So like we're gonna digest this and assimilate this as an apple instead of a cookie. And so I always remember that, and it cracked me up. I'm like, can you
That's
imagine
funny.
someone just sitting there and they're like, uh, bite of carrot, bite of Oreo. Okay, bite the carrot because we're gonna trick my body.
That's hilarious, dude. Oh yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen that before. Someone smells it, eats it.
Yeah.
It's like a piece of chocolate,
Yeah. No, I
eats
don't
eats
eat a
the
lot of
celery.
like raw vegetables either. Like I like I don't like chop up all my vegetables and stuff. I just get bagged vegetables, man. I like to keep things simple. I really
Yeah,
do. You know,
steam
like
fresh is great, man. I
throw it in the
love using
microwave.
them. Yeah, throw in the microwave, you're good to
Yeah.
go. You don't have to boil them and cook them, take all this time. Honestly, man, raw vegetables, I tell people too, I'm like, most of the time they mess up your gut. Like you're gonna feel like
Yeah.
they have that cellulose fiber on it, and
Yeah.
it's like if you don't cook that off, like it's just gonna slow the digestion of it anyways. So
In some of those cuts, you learn how much how much fiber and complex carbs your body can really handle. You know, because like you tend to overdo it. You know, because
yeah,
you're
you get
just
to a
trying to
point.
avoid hunger, like not to go
Hmm.
too far into cutting territory. Because, but you tend to really like lean towards these calorie friendly foods, which are usually high in fiber. So you're
Yep.
packing in 60 grams of fiber a day, where it's like, I think the sweet spot's, yeah, let's keep that between 30 and 40, like not go from 60 and 70, because, you're even packing in like things like low calorie bread, which is high packed with fiber. So that fiber, you start to push the limits during those cuts.
I'm guilty of doing that even heading into a gaining phase. I'm gonna sit here and tell you that that was a mistake I made in the past where I'm like, oh, I'm just so uncomfortable
So
and I'm
bloated.
like I'm doing a food audit and like, oh yeah, that those 4 pieces of low calorie bread that have like 5 grams of fiber a piece, probably not ideal for one meal.
That's why I don't like Quest bars, because Quest bars
Yeah.
pack
Oh,
there's 17 grams of fiber in a Quest bar. So if you eat two Quest bars, you're already over like the daily
you're
allotment of
you're making a
fiber.
bolus of a gut wrecker, right? And you're
Yeah,
just in one bar. It's I don't like them either. That's why I
it's a
like pure
gimmick.
protein. Yeah, the pure protein bars, like they carry like they're very low fiber, so like I like utilizing them. I mean, because they digest well. I mean, I think solely from that.
Yeah, digestion's a big one. So like
Yes,
choosing from foods that go down if appetite is an issue. Like I said, for me, appetite's that's just not it's just not an issue, partly because I have reliable foods. I'm not blasting with, low calorie dense foods.
right.
Um, and then also just I've always had like a high appetite. Like I've always like been able to like pack the
Mhm.
food in. So I think there's a certain genetic component to that.
There
There are
is.
some people that just don't have an appetite. They really can't handle a lot of food. Do you find that as well?
Yeah, I have a couple
Yeah.
clients actually that are exactly like that, that like can have a relatively low body fat set point to begin
Yeah.
with, and
Yeah.
then just, they forget to eat. I'm like, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, how'd you forget to eat? I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm good, but I'm the same way. Hunger is never an issue. It can get very high. It has in the past, and
Yeah.
I think just I think being in a state of controlled, like my hunger is not bad. It's not low, it's not high, but it's controlled is like a
Yeah.
good sweet spot, I think.
Yeah.
It's for
I think also in this scenario, like things like bagels or like these
Mhm.
really high like carb sources. And even
Yes.
some of these things carry protein. Like
Yeah.
in a bagel, you're gonna have 10 grams of protein. So if you have two bagels, you're looking at 105 grams of carbs because bagels are high, super high, which is why I
Oh, for
like them.
sure.
They're great because you're like, okay, I need to get in like 100 grams of carbs. Well, let's throw in two bagels. That's okay. So that's even over 100. That's like 105. And then 10 grams of protein. So that's 20 grams of protein right there. Then you can start adding things like, okay, let's see if I need fats in. Okay, why don't throw peanut butter on that?
Right.
Oh my God, peanut butter on a bagel. It's super delicious. Now you're getting in fats, you're getting in more protein. So now you're at like 28, 30 grams of protein. So that's a great number. And then throw some jelly on that, like some preserves. You basically have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich out of a bagel, which I mean, if you get two of those, you're living the high life, man. That's a good food for someone who's like doesn't have much of an appetite and needs to like get some get some high numbers in there without a ton of like feeling full. Like you could eat
No,
that and
you're
not
right.
really feel like, oh my God, I just ate so much.
That's what I honestly I love utilize like right now I like my wife will get mad about me talking about this, but literally
What?
I cruise through I cruise through the bagels right now, man. The cinnamon raisin bagels. Like when I have
Thomas
a what's that?
Thomas brand or what brand are
Oh yeah,
you?
the
Yeah,
Thomas,
those
yes.
are good. Yeah.
I literally I think so when I like a food I love it and I stick with it for a while and I get like a I'm like
Yeah.
okay like this
So you
this
start
is
getting
the
sick of
theme
it.
of this week, yeah, this week or this month, and I'll run with it for the longest time. So like I literally have like Schwebels and Thomas bagels, like cinnamon raisin bagels, and I run through 1 to 2 after my workout with a protein bar, and it just
Phenomenal.
checks off the boxes
Totally.
and you know it doesn't leave you feeling like you're uncomfortable and it feels you just at that sweet spot. So I think bagels, you brought up a great point. Bagels are probably one of the best like carb sources you can utilize during a gaining phase, along with just getting in that added protein that to help complement
Yeah,
everything, all the
dude.
carbs that you're shuttling in that you
You
want to
can
get
make
in.
a shuttle. The carbs are a shuttle, and then you
Mhm.
fill them with whatever protein and things like this. So, or even like cream cheese, like whipped cream cheese,
Oh
putting
yeah,
that
yeah.
on the bagel with the jelly. Have you ever done that? Like that combo, cream cheese and
So
jelly? It's so
I
good.
I've done jelly. My so she'll like my wife will drink have a lot of the cream cheese. I like it. I can't. I haven't got huge into it because I'm always like the guy that can easily overeat my fats and stuff. So,
Oh,
but
really? So there's only like 4.5 grams of fat in if you
oh,
get the light if you get the light version, and I
like
like
the
the whipped.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, and you get the whip because it's light, it spreads easy instead of like the cream
Yeah.
cheese, it's like hunks and it's like sticks to the
Hmm.
knife. Then the whipped, it's light, dude. It's
Oh,
light.
yeah,
Five
like the
gram, five
reduced.
grams of
Yeah,
fat. Yeah, and
it's not bad.
it's no, no, and you don't need like you really like one serving will take you two bagels. Like it's a good. I actually prefer the taste wise to peanut butter. I'll opt for
Really?
pe I'll opt for peanut butter when I need like, a lot of fats in because I tend to burn through my carbs. I'm a carb guy, so I tend to have a lot of fats at the end of the day. So it sounds like we're kind of opposites on those where you burn through your fats and
Well, actually, I do. I have this similar issue. I get a lot of fats in at the end of the day because I'm like I've always I don't know naturally I gravitate towards higher carb, higher protein throughout the day, and I think maybe that's why I'm like I don't know. I always thought like cream cheese, like at least the some I've seen, it's like there have been like
they
really
do have
fat
very
dense.
high fat ones. They do have
Yeah,
very high fat ones. Like
but
even
you
in the
know,
off season, like I can't like wrap my head around like spending 10 grams of fat on cream cheese or some shit. Like,
yeah, like that's how I kind of like look at it too. And but you know how I said I didn't like sushi till I was 29. I probably
yeah.
will start liking cream cheese now. Now that you got me kind of convinced, I
I
might go
do
get some.
not
So
I do not like cream cheese in my sushi though. I will say that. You
yeah,
know how a lot of that's a weird
yeah,
that's a
yeah.
weird American thing, I think. Like, why don't we put cream cheese in this? Like, I bet you if you went to Japan, you wouldn't find them sticking cream cheese in there in their
No, no
sushi.
way. I'm the plainest. I'm the plainest guy when it comes to sushi. I get regular tuna rolls, just tuna rice, seaweed.
Okay.
That's it. It's my wife's
You
like, you don't
don't
want to get
get
like
like nutty with it.
no, I don't get like the yum yum sauce in it and stuff. I don't know.
What's the
I just
yum
get
yum sauce?
it's like this spicy sauce that like people use a lot on their Chinese dishes. I feel like I don't even know if they put them in like
Is
sushi
it
rolls,
spicy
but
mayonnaise?
oh yeah, you know what? I think it's yeah,
I
spicy
hate that
mayonnaise.
stuff.
I don't
I
like it either. It's
no.
calorically dense though. It's very I mean it's very calorically dense if
Right.
people are looking to get some heavy calorie condiments
M-
in. I've
My
come
thing,
to find
yeah,
that.
I've begun ordering. First off, when you go into a sushi place, they lather that stuff on. I don't know
Oh
who's
yeah.
it's like the same person in every sushi place. They're like, why don't we just like put all of this sauce on? So you're hardly tasting the sushi. Like you said, it's hugely calorie dense. So I'm not looking to
Mhm.
spend all these calories on. I hate mayonnaise. I
I
do
I
not
hate
like.
it too.
I hate it. Oh wow. Okay,
It's
cool. Yeah. So we
disgusting.
align
Ugh.
on that. So I
Ooh.
tell them like sauce, all sauces on side, all
Hmm.
sauces on side, and then you can just put as much of whatever sauce they give you, and kind of it tastes way better. It's that's a professional sushi tip.
Yeah.
I've once I started doing that, I mean, and anyone who's been with me is like, this is the move.
Yeah.
This is
Oh
the
yeah.
move. Yeah, because it's like you're scraping that stuff off. It's a glob they put on. It's disgusting. I don't even like thinking
Yeah.
about it. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about like pre-workout meals, like
Mhm.
real quickly, and then we can get into like the training and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
so these days, like when I peak off season, I like to have two meals in me to ensure I'm getting a my performance is at its peak level. I find that if I train first thing too early, that I'm not as strong as I am after a couple meals. I'm not as hydrated as I am after a couple meals. And I find that I even like hurt like I get hurt more if train first thing in the morning. Um if I train too late, so this is also going to be very individualized as with everything that we're talking about.
Right. Right.
Everything that we're talking about is a what if scenario, if that
Correct.
scenario. The numbers, those are all what if scenarios. There's everything is completely individualized to the person.
Yep.
Um, but if I train too late in the day, I get headaches from working and looking at screens. So for me, 2 to 4, that area, depending on my circadian rhythm
Yeah.
cycle, like that kind of changes depending on what I'm doing. Like right now I'm going to sleep at like 3 in the morning and waking up at like 11:30. So that changes as my schedule changes. So I like to wake up, get a meal in me, wait a little bit, get another meal in me, get some electrolytes in me, take my pre-workout, and then that's when I find my performance is at its peak.
Right.
So, what does your day look like and how many I know like your schedule's a little bit different, so you have to train first thing in the morning.
Right.
So what are you getting in your system before you go and hit the gym?
So typically, yeah, I like to have a higher like protein, higher carb, and a little bit. I like to squeeze in some fats type of meal. Like
Mm-hmm.
typically, my breakfast doesn't change, but I want to make sure I get that in because I burn through energy quick. I'm just, I'm kind of person that's like put it in me, like get the food in me, boom, like I'm getting a glucose
I'm the
dump
kind
if
of
I
person,
don't.
put it in me.
Yeah, yeah, get it in. Come on. No,
Yeah.
they so I literally like will eat it and I like to, I'll throw in I love eating a ton of like a couple bagels with my eggs in the morning and or some bread
So you'll
and
wake up and cook eggs first thing in the morning before you hit the gym?
I try to because the nice thing is I do make my schedule, but at the same time, like I have time in the morning because I get the dog ready in the morning, get him
Sure.
breakfast and stuff. So I'm making my breakfast while I'm making his. And So I'll typically have some eggs. I
Okay.
this is where I shuttle my vegetables in. I throw some sweet peppers in for
Okay.
that
All right.
for the vitamin K for your eyes, like
Yeah.
carrots, and they I throw those in. So I check off one of the two boxes for the day for my
Any
vegetables.
supplements? Any supplements with this meal?
Yeah, I'll put my vitamin, my multivitamin, and my D3 in there, and I used to take fish oil back in the day, but I mean the sources are just not the most reliable. So I tried to get
You're talking about
um
quality wise of getting like
mm,
what
like
they say that
farm.
you're getting in terms of omegas versus what's actually in the capsule.
Yeah, well, like the ones that I get personally, it's just like I don't know. It's the quality of them. I did some research in them, and they just weren't that good.
Gotcha.
So I kind of went away from that, and just I try to get in some good fats throughout the my week, like salmon and but
Okay.
some good omegas. But yeah, no, nonetheless, I'll throw in a solid fat source with them. But I like my sweet spot. My sweet spot's typically anywhere from like 5 to 10. Like I don't like to go above 10 grams of fat for my pre-workout meal because I find that the 5 grams allows not only for the vitamins I just took to
Sure,
digest,
sure, sure.
and I take my creatine 5 grams in the morning there too, but that allows that digestion to level off a little bit. So when I'm going into my workout, I'm not just expending all the energy at the front end of it, and it can like stay it's slowly what's the word I'm looking for? It's slowly, steadily providing me energy throughout my entire workout still.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So and I do drink intra-workout carbs, which is another thing
You-
that you can utilize too.
that's a great thing, especially like you don't feel those carbs. I mean, those carbs are that's just like nothing. Like you
Yeah,
get it from
liquid calories
dextrose or cluster dextrin or whatever.
or Gatorade powder. Yeah,
Gatorade powder.
it's
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
a lot of
Gotcha.
people probably yeah, and that's what I usually do. Just if I
Yeah.
can get it, but
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an off season thing for me too.
mhm.
Um, I don't, that's one of the first things to go when I'm cutting. It's just liquid carbs. That's where I find like, okay, when I start my food starts getting low, I'm at, 1,800 calories, something like that. Those liquid carbs are going because now
Yeah,
I want to stay satiated as much as possible.
right.
But in the off season, that's not an issue. So what I like to see what there's in Gatorade powder, there's 22 grams carbs per serving. So you're looking at, do you do a full serving of that or do you do two servings?
I try to get 30 grams worth of carbs out
Okay.
of it. So it'll be
Okay.
like 100
That's
calories from it, but so not
gotcha.
a little bit
Okay.
above a serving. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
tried just to,
I'm very, very similar. When I wake up, I do for my first meal, I like a protein shake. I just don't like cooking and doing all of that in the morning.
yeah.
So I'll have a protein shake, 40, 50 grams of protein, boom. What I'll actually do is I'll either have oatmeal with that or I'll have cereal. So, and I like to mix my cereals too. So I like to get like Raisin Bran. So I'm getting some fiber in there. And then also I like to use Honey Nut Cheerios. So I throw those in there. And then I'll pour my protein shake into that's my base. So no
That's your
milk
milk.
or
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
yeah, that's my milk. It's just with
Yeah.
water and I put it in there. I eat that. It's absolutely delicious. It's down in 3 seconds, and then I'm off to do whatever, emails or whatever I'm doing. Then before the gym, that's when I'll have and then vitamins. So I do have vitamin D, vitamin K, multivitamin. I do have a fish oil that I take. And then I do have I have the creatine with my pre-workout. So I'll have
Okay. Yeah.
that before the gym. And usually before the gym, it's something like I'm with you, on keeping the fats relatively low and the carbs high. I like
Hmm.
having a decent amount of carbs in my system before I hit the gym. So today was like two Rice Krispie treats. Just get
That's a
some
good
quick carb.
source. Yeah.
It's just
Quick.
quick carbs. Then Gatorade powder. I'll have that. I'm with you on the exact same diet. I like 20 to 30 grams of carbs while I train. And then I tend to have all of my vegetables and fruits and beef and chicken and all these different things in the back end of my day. So front
Yep.
end of the day, I like to keep it quick, keep it simple. Back end of the day, that's where I like to cut up avocado, throw that in vegetables, make beef tacos. I've been making these like chicken fingers that are really good.
Ooh, yeah.
And then I'll throw in, like, if I need fats for the rest of the day, I'll throw in more avocado or peanut butter, just whatever I need to fill in my day. Blueberry, I've been on a berry kick, so strawberries, blueberries, I really like. I really like those, and there's supposed to be a lot of benefits with them too. So
That's my fruit combo every lunch. Strawberries and blueberries, man. That's my like two fruit combo
they go down like
requirements.
nothing too. You're
Oh,
just like,
so easy.
yeah,
Handful of those, good to go.
yeah, and you don't have to like with an apple. Kind of, I don't like to bite into an apple. I like to cut it up. I don't bite into any food. Like I don't like to like
Yeah,
a
just
corn on the
like
cob. I won't bite straight in. I broke
get
my front
stuck.
tooth. I broke my
Ooh.
front tooth a couple times. So anything where I like bite down freaks me out because just that front tooth broke that when I got it broken, it like scarred me for like anything where I'm like, okay, be careful, you know.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so I think we've talked a lot about some strategies with dieting.
Yeah.
Let's well, I mean, the biggest thing is being in a calorie surplus too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Trying to get it
so
in.
you're gaining weight during this process.
Hmm.
That's something a lot of people are not very comfortable with.
No,
You know, you got to
most
see
most
that
aren't.
scale go up. You know,
It's a
so
requirement.
it's a requirement. So the more that you do, what rate of gain, you know, I think it's dependent on the week, but I like to see that pattern going up. And if, let's say we don't gain that week, depending on what happened beforehand, that's when I like to add in more food. I like to keep the
Right.
gain going. What about you?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think just that rate of gain definitely can fluctuate, but typically over like a bi-weekly or weekly assessment,
Yeah.
I like to see it go up anywhere from a quarter pound to 0.75
Yeah.
pounds per week. Like, and sometimes it's a pound, sometimes it's a pound and a half. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It depends on the individual
Yep.
but I mean, definitely can fall anywhere in there. But I think as long as the trajectory's like, yeah, we're putting on like 1 to 2 pounds over the course of the month, like, and if we see things stall out and we've been nailing our nutrition,
Yeah.
yeah, adjustments are coming, like, we're gonna have to bump some things up. But yeah, most of the time that's what I look for
And I
is
find if you're like been doing this a long time, that's when people are like, more food, hell yeah. Whereas during the diet time, you're like, it's like a change is coming. It's like less food, you know?
yeah,
So there is just a certain amount of excitement that comes with seeing the increase in food, getting the food changes and giving the food changes during the off season. There is a nice little, oh yeah, like more food, like let's go, opposed to there's this human instinct where when people are taking your food away, especially when calories are lower, you start to get like into that fight or flight mode. Whereas in the off season, everything's just a lot more laid back and relaxing, and there's just a whole lot more excitement that comes with the food increase opposed to the food decrease. And like the food increases don't have to be anything huge. I mean,
mm-mm.
I got no problem giving 20 carbs here, you know, that's a food increase. Sometimes you don't have to keep that weight going. Sometimes you don't have to throw in 400 calories, 200 calories. I mean, that's a lot for the beginning. Yeah. When you're getting things going, you're coming out of deficit. It's good to get that weight coming up. But after
Right,
a while, an 80 calorie change, a 40 calorie change, something as small as that can get that weight moving into that preferred range. And that's okay. You're growing.
right,
So 5 grams of protein here, 20 grams carbs here, 2 grams fats here. That's okay, as well as based on what your weight's doing, 40, 50 grams carbs here, 5 grams, 10 grams fat, 10 grams protein. So again, lots of context involves, but don't be afraid to both make conservative changes and make aggressive changes when needed.
100%. And I definitely think that you touched on a good point there too with the initial phases coming out. It's like I think that's a good sigh of relief because those big changes initially are awesome. Like they're super fun. I think that's always every time I come
Yeah.
out of a diet, I'm like, oh, here comes the big one, and
It's
then
different.
and then it's like, oh, all right, we're at, you have that abundance mindset back in again. It's like because as you said, with the fight or flight kicks in, you get that scarcity, like you're saving everything to like, try to conserve what you have to work with. And then you turn around and then it's like, oh, we have, keep bringing in more. It's like, yeah, we don't have to, we're going to keep bringing money in, right? We're just, it's just keep racking it in. It feels great. And then when you have to keep spending money and you're not making any back, like, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I really need to save those extra couple bucks there.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how like it definitely that mentality, like, I mean, that's how like we view it, but like I mean, it's true. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good analogy too, that bank account. So with training, one thing I've noticed, I kind of said it in the beginning, is this is where a lot of people let off the brakes. So when you're feeling good, man, that's the time to
to
punch the
execute.
gas, right? That's the time to execute. So things like just training intensity. I do not see a lot of training intensity in the gym. I really don't. I notice a lot of people have 10, 12 reps in reserve, just in the gas tank is so full.
Yep,
So pushing yourself to failure, now is the time to do it. Now is the time to bring the intensity.
you're
It's kind
exactly
of like
right.
you notice like when people are training abs, they train abs in when they're like getting ready to do a show. Do all that stuff now. Not that you're
Yeah,
going to have to do all this stuff then, but the volume naturally over time is going to have to come down. Now is the time to grow, push the volume. Now's the time
right,
to toe that limit. Like we were talking
exactly,
about before, I like to throw a 6 day in there until I can't really do it anymore.
right.
My recovery starts. You're kind of always playing this little dance with recovery. So
Yep,
I find that it's better. I would always rather toe that line and push it past safely, of course. You're not trying to get injured. You
right,
gotta you gotta be smart. You're not trying to tear anything or
right.
overtrain or get yourself sick. But you can push it past your limit and then pull back a little bit.
Right.
Get that recovery going. And we'll talk about recovery. But I like to throw that 6 day in there personally. Do that until I need to pull back and then go back to the 5 days. But I can't do that in prep. The time to do that is in the off season when you're growing.
I
And it's
agree.
these types of things, tracking your weights, making sure your weights are heading in the right direction. Some people like to track them more closely than others. I don't have a problem with that. As long as you know what you're doing, then and everything's moving in the right direction, that's the type of stuff that I look for. Are you getting stronger over time? Like the longer you do this, you're going to hit walls. I mean, if
Hmm.
after 10 years of training, your strength increases are not going to be the same as they were in your first 5 years or in your
Right.
first 2 years. And once you get to hit to 15 years of training, it's like muscle growth. I mean, how strong can you get on lateral raises? How strong can
Yeah.
you get on bicep curls if you're doing respectable form? I don't have a problem with throwing a swing and you know throwing it up there or whatever.
Right.
But you want to maintain proper form. So
Right.
I don't over time you have to figure out different ways to make things challenging.
Measure
So
progress for sure.
yeah, so
About
even things like dropping the weight a little bit and focusing on form, doing some things like paused reps, some supersets, drop sets, especially on stubborn areas that you're really working on. These things, the time to do all this stuff is during the growth season. So that's what I look for. What about you? Do you see what I'm saying with training intensity? I noticed that is an area that most people can focus on improving, and I think it's one of the most underrated areas.
Yeah,
Training intensity is so important.
and I feel as if it's that the intensity drops off too, just because of like the goal, like we were talking, like mindset wise, like just like there's no tangible goal in front of them at this
Right.
point, or it's nowhere near. So I think falling in love with the performance, your performance in the gym definitely is key. I mean, I literally there's nothing more I love more than just like getting hyper focused on I really want to hit these squats on like the Swiss machine squats. I would really love to hit this number like 315 or 325 for 3 sets of 8 reps. I would love to hit that. Like I'm gonna keep working towards that. And like that's what drives me going in there and pushing the intensity. Like and then at the same time too, like just kind of not only doing that, but like I go in there, I record my sets, look at my things, like look at my sets, and there might be an exercise that might not have progressed for a month, and but the intensity is, I'm getting it's not an RP9 anymore to hit the 100-pound dumbbells for a set of 5 on incline bench. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's progress, right? Like so it's like, and I think breaking down like your amount of progress and measuring progress, it can come in so many forms that it doesn't just have to correlate with more weight over time, more intense, like, or maybe getting easier over time. And I can push it harder, and that translates over to pushing it harder. That means, hey, you got to bump up, eventually bump up the weight or add another set in, whatever the case may be. So I think definitely just really hyper like double downing on what you're doing in the gym is going to translate into that much better of a result outside of the gym whenever it comes to cutting down the line. And I think that makes, I don't know, it's made me fall in love with training way more than it is the cut itself. And um, I really think a lot of people, if they were to get hooked on that, it would make not only training intensity go up, but it would make their like whole view of this much more long-term thinking, like getting more long-term thinking with this and allow them to enjoy the process that much more.
I don't think people real also like I think people underestimate how big of a difference like training hard actually makes when it comes to physique improvements.
Yeah, it's hard and it's not easy.
Training is the stimulus for everything. Yeah, the diet takes care of a lot, but if you're not training hard and you're not pushing yourself, you're leaving a ton on the table. That's the difference between that extra half a pound that you could possibly stand to gain. When you diet down, that's significant. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a half a pound to a pound. That is significant progress over the course of a training year. And I feel the same way. I feel like people use that time to kind of let up since there is no immediate goal. And then once they pick their show and they're 18, 20 weeks out, that's when they step things up. By that time, it's too late. You're just
Hmm.
going to show what you have,
Yep.
and we're talking about making progress year to year to year to year to year. So one thing I do notice a lot too is I don't see a whole lot of warm up sets. I'm really big on warm up sets, feel sets, whatever you want to call them. So when it comes to an exercise, I like to do warm up sets for every single exercise. It takes me personally a couple sets to feel the exercise where I want to feel it, especially on an area like hamstrings or something like that, where I'm like not so, where I'm doing a bicep curl. I feel that the first set. So I'll probably have less warm up sets to do for a bicep curl than, say, a hamstring exercise, an RDL, a seated hamstring curl, whatever squat, obviously. So I think that performing warm up exercises for every exercise is beneficial. It doesn't have to be a ton. I like anywhere from 2 to unlimited. I'll do as many warm-up sets as it takes for me to feel the movement
Right.
before I get into my first working set. And sometimes I could take 5 or 6 sets of,
Yeah.
okay, let's throw on 130 on there, 2 reps. Okay. Let's throw on 140 on there, 2 reps. Okay. I know last week I was at 160 for 15 reps. Based on how I'm feeling right now, I think I could do that. Let's bump it up to 180. I'm going to make this my first working set. Boom.
Mm.
Okay. By now, I've done 3, 4 warm up sets before I'm even into my first working set.
Yep.
So you're stronger for your working sets. That's
Right.
going to equate to muscle growth. Your joints, soft tissue, ligaments, these things are way more protected now that
They're
you've gotten some
acclimated.
blood into the area. They've gotten used to the movement, especially on things like leg extensions or something like this. Like I'll have to do more more on a leg extension than probably any other exercise because of the knee joint being so
How
exposed in that
vulnerable it is.
position.
Yeah.
Yeah, that and then also like quads can get fucking strong, man. Like it's not out of the norm to be doing a 220, 260 leg extension. Well, you don't just dive into that. It's gonna take how long is it gonna take me to get to that working
Yeah.
rate? It's one
Yeah.
of those exercises where I'm like, I need to like pull back and start doing things like slower reps and focusing on the squeeze and the time under tension because I don't want to get to, any higher weight with this exercise because I can feel that if I keep pushing the weight, yeah,
Right.
my muscles are getting stronger, but my joints are not going to like that. So
Right. And
being smart with things like that, I think is important too.
I think so too. And I always like to tell people, and I do this myself, is like I work up to like a heavy single or double, like you were
Yep.
saying, a couple reps there.
Yep.
Working up to that heavy single, like maybe even it's above my working weight by like 10, 15 pounds. Like hitting that before I start my actual working sets or like the
Yeah.
hard sets there, I think that's beneficial because like a lot of times people go in, they'll just jump right into an exercise and they're not acclimated with the weight. If you're not acclimated to the exercise you're doing with that intended working set you're trying to get accomplished, what's going to happen is your muscle fibers, they're not going to be ready. They're not going to be warm. Your tendons and ligaments aren't going to be warm. You're not going to be prepared for the lift. So if you go in and do that, you are literally just like, it's almost like you ever see those guys go to bench and they just drop the weight on their chest? Like
I don't even like, I don't even
it's
like thinking
gross.
about it.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
freaks. Like you ever like get some of those like, pec tear videos that come across your feed every once in a while.
Yeah, when
I
he
can't
snaps at the
look at
stretch.
I
Yeah.
can't even look at that stuff.
Mm-mm.
Or like the
I got
knee, like it's from squatting or whatever. That stuff freaks me. The leg press hyperextension.
ugh,
That stuff freaks me out, dude. It gives
yeah.
me like heebie-jeebies.
I got chest tomorrow, so
Yeah, yeah. It's not even like, all right, moving on, moving on, moving on, moving on.
but yeah, no,
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't
it's just not preparing. Like
no.
you gotta be warm and ready for the movement because if you're not, like you could snap up your stuff so easy.
I think about
Good
80% of
thing.
people don't do this. And I'm including athletes in this.
Yeah.
I talk
Oh,
to
100%.
high-level athletes and I ask, are you warming? Are you warming up? Are you doing your warm up sets? No, going straight into the first working sets. It's yeah, it takes more time, but not that much more time, and the reward is just dramatic.
Yeah.
You're gonna be so much stronger. You're gonna be so much more protected. You're going to be less likely to get injured.
Yes.
So
100%.
I really that's like a non-negotiable in my lifts is I have to do warm-up sets. And I'll do them for every, do you do them for every exercise? Because I'll do them for every exercise.
So I do them for like the main ones that I'm going up for. Like if it's a leg day, I'll do like for
Yep.
leg press, squats, a lot of the compounds, hamstrings, anything that can be easily, in a
Yeah.
position where it's like risky. Things like I don't necessarily warm up. I'll do like not I do warm up for them, but the sets are less. Like as I'm deeper into a workout and I have more blood flow into my system, I do warm up like for lateral raises, for example. I'll do like maybe one like two feeler sets and then I'll
Mhm.
jump into the weights.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but like for the most part, yes. Most of the exercises do, but like if it's a like tricep extension or on a high rep day and I've already done one tricep movement
Gotcha. Yeah,
pattern,
yeah,
then I'll
yeah.
probably just forgo. But for the
It
most
doesn't
part,
it doesn't take a whole lot of warm up when you've done triceps and you're moving on to biceps or vice versa.
right.
The blood's right
The
there.
blood's there.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so it only
As long
takes a
as
set
you're
or two.
yeah, as long as
Yep.
I'm warm, like I feel confident in the movement. I've done a few couple reps with that movement already. Then
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I'm really big on that. And also I think that's again why like even squatting, like squatting, I have
You
to.
have to.
I
That's just
also really, really, really like placing my squats after my hamstring isolation and my quad isolation. So I like having all of that blood in my knees before getting to the squat because that's when all my stuff is protected and that's when I'm going to be my most efficient. And that's when I feel it in my quads the most. After leg extensions, going to a squat, my quads are ready to go. I'm feeling my
yeah.
quads right now. I've I've used those neural pathways and now my quads are they're talking to me. And so by the time I get into that Smith machine, it doesn't take me but a couple warm up sets to get to my first working set. Usually I'll start my first working set at like 180, something like that, and then build up from there. Um, and by the time I've gotten there, I'm feeling it. My quads are ready to go and nothing in the knee joint, which is
There
like hugely important.
you and I have a very similar approach to that because I will if the knee extension's taken up, I try to do both too.
Yeah.
Um, if anything, I make sure I do get my lying hamstring curl in before I do like a squat. Because honestly, man, from a line, I mean, working in PT, they used to, it's so nuanced, and this is a whole nother topic of this conversation, but like we used to do things like check alignments, like of your
Mm-hmm.
hips.
Mm-hmm.
And in the outpatient setting, and what happens is like people are like, oh, you're out of alignment. This bone shifted this way. It's just tight muscles, like tight muscle, like antagonistic and agonistic muscle groups.
Yep.
And your hips, a lot of people sit all day. So like a lot of people's hips are tight.
Yeah.
And if they go and squat, no warm up, nothing, like then they're going to be tight. They're going to be in a more like shifted into a position where it's going to put tissue at risk for injury. So by doing like the lying hamstring curl, you're not only stretching the hips, you're getting blood flow in the hamstrings, you're getting blood flow in the knee joint as you talked about.
Yep.
But it creates that alignment for your joints and like alignment. I'm saying basically it's preparing tissues on both sides, the front side and back side of your body to really do the movement. And I think
I
that's a
always
hidden
put
gem.
yep, I always put a hamstring at the beginning of my workout, and then also I'll like to include like an RDL in there
Yep.
as well. That could be when I an RDL first I would never do because putting the hamstring in that stretch position, not fully warmed up, I don't like that.
Snap
That
City,
is
man.
asking for Snap City. Yeah, that's asking for trouble.
Oh yeah.
But also for me, hamstrings is a huge area I'm working on. So I like to have that first because of all these injury prevention reasons that you talked about, but also my energy is highest right out the gate. I really like to push the Most people put a hamstring movement like, okay, it's the end of my workout. Oh yeah, I got to do hamstrings. Let me just do a couple curls and call it.
Yeah.
I like to really, really focus on my hamstring curls. I think they're such an important movement for the hamstring, especially because when you're squatting and doing leg press, you're getting so much other activation. Quads, adductors, glutes, all these different areas are coming into play.
Right.
Hamstrings, just hamstrings, hamstring curl, whether it be a lying curl, a seated curl, like a decline, like lying decline seated curl with a dumbbell in between your legs. That's a great one. The gravity is
Yeah.
I mean, the gravity is working against you on that the whole time.
Right.
So I like all of these different movements and I like those first. By the time you get to your leg extensions, that line curl, that seated curl, you do have a blood in your knee just from
Right.
doing that. So you're ready to go for those extensions. We talked about extensions and then the compound movements. I feel like that works really well. Could you be stronger for your squat if you put that first? Maybe, probably. But at the same time, are you going to feel it where you want to feel it as much? Not for me. I
No.
won't.
Yeah. I
I
agree.
won't. So, like I said, these are things that it's taken me a long time to learn with my own body. Like with squats, I used to feel those really in my hips, man. Really used to feel them in my hips. They always hurt, man, until I
Hmm.
started really breaking things down and kind of taking these different approaches. And then you feel them. If you've never done a squat after a leg extension, do it. You really feel those in your quads. And I just even focus on like elongating my quad as I'm going down. So like
Hmm.
making that a
Getting that
quad
stretched
movement.
and
Yeah,
yep.
getting that as a stretch instead of like breaking at the hips and dropping down and making it like a hip, glute, like, hamstring, everything, just focusing on a quad. And for me, I don't have to go down all the way to parallel. Typically towards the end when my quads start to get so exhausted, when I get to that very bottom portion and that bar path is that bar speed is getting real slow. By the time I get down, sometimes I can't get back up, so I drop down. But then I'm really getting into that area where it's like, okay, I'm getting in some good glutes now. They're
Yeah.
taking over, and I could really push that to failure to the point where if I'm down, I feel comfortable dropping right there.
Right. Yep. Yeah, no, I'm kind of in the similar ballpark here. So like I have to get below parallel a little bit, but I can't also if I go too far down, I'm thinking like stimulus to fatigue. Like if it's at the cost of me going full range where my lower back just can't handle it and it, gets in a vulnerable spot, I'm risking injury.
Right.
So it's like, I
Do you
mean,
have
and
lower back pain ever? Is that
I
anything you?
have in the past, but until I found that sweet spot of depth with my squat, that with any squat pattern I do, once I found that sweet spot, I've knock on wood have not injured my back. I've ran like a year straight of not doing it after multiple times of having injuries, and I was looking, I'm like, why is this happening? And looking back, I'm like, well, I can go the full range of motion, but after loading up so much like once I still hit that range of motion with much heavier load, there's at some point something is going to give and it puts me in that risk of injury. So it's like I found that, finding that comfortable depth for me where I still get good quad stimulation and activation while progressing load and keeping it the same, keeping form the same, that's like stopping me from getting injured because I'm not constantly putting my back in such a vulnerable spot. So it's just as you said, it's as
Yeah.
you learn your body as you go and you break things down, it
Squat's
takes
one of those
time.
things where you can't really look at another person's squat and be like, okay, that's how I should squat.
Yeah, there's no
Like
gold
you're I
standard. Yeah.
there you and like that's what you see online a lot of it. Need to fix your squat, do this, do that, do
Yeah.
that. And it's one of the
It's
things
all
that
individual.
just to kind of go on a little side tangent here, one of the things that I see, like a pattern I see, is like, do you ever notice like when you're on social media, everyone's telling you what to do?
Yep.
Do this, get this. Do that. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. That's the stuff that gets views. Like, that's the type of stuff. The more controversial you could be, the more views you're going to get. But when it comes to fitness and bodybuilding, everything comes with an asterisk. Everything is
Everything.
maybe that'll work. It might. Let's do this and find out. Like, well, what's happening here? How's your recovery? How many? You should do this amount of sets. Well, can you recover from those amount of sets? How long are your femurs? Okay, let's take that into consideration.
Right.
There's so much
So
context with
much.
every single thing that we're talking about: protein intake, carb intake, fat intake. How's your digestion? Can you handle all those simple carbs? Can you
Yeah,
handle the Gatorade dextrose? Like that can go through some people. Some people can't
exactly.
handle pre-workout pop. The list is endless, but those things are not sexy. It's not very intriguing to be like, well, maybe we'll have to do this and find out. Right? So that is something that kind of it's a pattern that I see, and it's a pattern that I don't like because everyone's training is going to look a little bit different. Everyone's
Right,
diet's going to look a little bit different. Everyone's I mean, everyone's genetics are different. So
right.
squatting is one of those things, you know. Some people just can't squat.
Yeah,
Some people cannot squat. Squats
yeah,
just are not in the cards for them, and that's fine.
yeah. Some people have built really amazing
Right.
leg development off of leg pressing, like leg pressing and lunging and different
Yeah.
things. Yeah, it's
Right.
more than one way to skin a cat in this game.
That's right. So okay, so I thought you said something interesting, which was your back, but I think that's a good segue into recovery.
Yeah,
So like peak off season, that's really when you should be feeling your best. I
yes,
mean, you should be training hard, recovering. Sleep should be uninterrupted. That's kind of sleep's one of those hard ones because everyone's lifestyle is so different. Sometimes you
right,
can't help but get like 5 hours of sleep,
right.
unfortunately. In a perfect, I personally like 10 hours of sleep. That's my like I require a lot of sleep. I
Yes,
require a lot of like
that's a
the same
lot.
person, just to kind of go back to what I was just talking about with like everyone's different. Some people can get 6 hours of sleep and feel the same way that I feel when I've gotten 10 hours of sleep.
Right, right.
Everyone's different that way. If I get 6 hours of sleep, no good. That's not, I don't, my body doesn't like it. I
Yeah, that's a
require, yeah, I require a lot of, I require a lot of everything, to be honest. So when it comes to sleep, I require sleep. When it comes to training volume, I can handle a lot of volume. I could train to failure quite a bit before I need to
pump the
think
brakes a
about
little bit.
yeah, before my recovery starts to suffer. I can handle a lot of caffeine. I can handle a lot of just stuff. My tolerance for things has always been very high.
You can
You
handle
know what I
mega
mean?
doses. Mega
That's a
doses of
mega
everything.
that's a mega I can handle a mega pint. Yeah. No, I can handle a lot of everything. And my body just seems to run that way. But a lot of people can't.
Yeah.
I have a client who we had to bring his we had to bring his sets down to some muscle groups six sets per week because
Wow.
he was not recovering. His body was not recovering. I have some clients that can take 50 sets per week per
Yeah.
muscle group. So like that spectrum, like what if the
So
person
big.
is so big? And it's like that with everything.
Yeah.
Like that's why people when people will ask like how many sets should I be doing? I cannot give you that answer
It
effectively off the
depends.
top of my head. It depends
Yeah.
on so many different factors.
The best answer in the world. It depends.
It depends. Right, right. So, but injury prevention, you know, you if if prep whenever your prep is going to be your road trip, you need to have a full tank of gas. You shouldn't be stress should be stress should be at its lowest during your off season. Caffeine intake should be at its lowest
Yeah.
during your peak off season. You're going to need every tool at your disposal when you prep. So sleep's going to suffer. Training volume's eventually going to come down. I like to keep it high as long as you can.
Right.
Food should all be at its highest point during your off season, and then sleep should be at its best because all
Right.
these things by the time you get done with prep, Sleep's going to be at its worst. Caffeine's going to be at its highest. Volume's going to be at its lowest. Food's going to be at its lowest. You're going to be your most stressed and irritable.
You know,
That's just the way. That's just the way this goes.
it's the nature of the beast.
So yeah. So what do you look for, like with yourself? What are some good signs to look for that, like, okay, I'm recovering well. What do you look for with your clients?
So, recover like in terms of recovering, like during a
In
phase,
terms of recovery, yeah,
like in a gaining phase or like any phase, really.
it off season.
Off
So
season. Okay.
gaining, yeah.
Yeah. So, looking at the recovered, if they are in this like if they've completed the week and they're like, hey, I feel pretty good in the gym, my performance is going up, my energy levels are pretty stable. I'm, hunger's in a good spot. They're gaining at a perfect rate, like not a perfect rate, but at an ideal rate for the situation. Um, I really look at that. Energy is a big one. And kind of seeing like some red flags that kind of stand out to me too, though. It's like, oh, I'm just so, I feel like I'm dragging through the day. I'm really tired. Stress is starting to trickle up, and stress is typically in a good situation, and recovery is good. Stress is typically at bay. It's normal. Some's good, not a lot's good mode though as well.
Yeah, yeah. You can't
And
avoid. You can't avoid
you
stress.
can't avoid it. Yeah, you're gonna have some stress, but
Yeah,
like
that's
if
not.
it's
That's we're talking about managing stress.
yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
yeah, you can't eliminate it, unfortunately. But
yeah.
yeah. So looking at making sure all those boxes are checked off and they're all in a good spot, I think really is key because when training volume gets high, and no matter how much food you eat, sometimes the numbers just don't go up in the gym, and maybe yeah, your energy levels are starting to crash. You're starting to get stressed out at home, outside of the gym, like your other life's suffering just because of this. Like, Greg, okay, let's back it up a little bit because this should be good. This should not be, not that it shouldn't be happening because sometimes it does. But we need to make sure that we are in a good spot, stress is in a good spot, and we are able to push forward. So sometimes things like a deload, a break from training, a few rest days can really go a
So
long way
when you
with
do
that.
deloads,
Mhm.
um, or just breaks from training, do you like to program those in, or just wait until, okay, we're feeling this way? Because a lot of times people will program them in. I'm not a fan of like that. I like to wait until something is happening and then pull back. Other words, you're pulling back unnecessarily. You're trying to predict the future, all these different things. I just don't find that to be an effective approach.
I agree. I think that
Yeah.
you should you should squeeze out as much juice as you can.
Yeah.
And then when the time comes where we monitor those symptoms,
Mm,
and we look for those symptoms and check-ins,
yeah.
and when we communicate with clients, like that's like okay, um you know feel it out first. Like I always like to feel it out, like why don't we take a couple rest days? When's the last time you've taken a rest day? And if they tell me it's been a while, a long time, like okay, we need to take like a
Do
day
you
or
think
two.
though, if you're not taking rest days, are you training hard enough? Because,
Yeah,
right, like
exactly.
if you're training hard enough and your
You should be
intensity is
taking them.
there, you're gonna, it's
You
not
need
a
them.
you need them. Like
Yeah.
I find that and I know a lot of people, like, look, the gym is very enjoyable, as it should be. Like during, especially during this time, your excitement should be at its highest too. Like to get into the gym, go in there, crush it. You got leg day coming up, you got back day coming up. You're working on your weak areas. That's really important. So
Right.
you should be in that mode of like, let's go get this.
Right.
But if you can train for 7 days in a row and not have weird things happen like joint pain and different things and start feeling like shit, I don't think you're training hard.
I
Your
agree.
intensity is not there.
It's not there because like
Yeah.
if it was, something would catch up with you by that point.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Something
Right.
would.
Right. Right.
But
Right. I think it's different if you're enhanced,
yeah, I was
right?
about to say you can push that limit all you want. I mean,
Yeah. Right. Right.
yeah,
Right.
everything's
Yeah.
there. I mean, I can't really speak much on behalf of that side because,
Yeah. Right. Right. Same.
we're team natty over here, but
Yeah. Yeah. But boy, does it sometimes I question it. I'm like, there are things that I'm like, God, that would be nice. That would be nice. That would be nice. That half pound to pound of muscle a year, turning that into a monthly thing. You go,
a monthly,
wow,
yeah.
wouldn't that be a nice thing?
Oh yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, the natty struggle is real. But so I just don't think that you're training to your full capacity if you can go. And then if you know what though, like if you're not, then I think the 7 days or taking a rest day when needed, that's not such a bad approach because you're making up for the lack of intensity with just more volume, more reps. So
Yeah.
you know, that's gonna do something. So I
So
do
you're
think
getting some in, yeah.
yeah, right, right,
Yeah.
right. So okay, so in terms of like mindset and stuff like that, we talked a little bit about it. I think one area that's worth us touching on is just being patient. We were just talking about it. Yes, it's a slow process. It's very slow. I've been doing this for a long time. It's slow. Sometimes I don't want to say discouraging, but sometimes it's frustrating. I don't ever get discouraged like, oh, I'm going to stop. Like, no. But sometimes I fantasize or go, boy, that would be nice to grow more or get more
Right.
bang out of my buck. However, when you diet down, you do see the changes. It is evident. Again, taking pictures is important, but being patient, eternally patient, trusting, the process. I mean, that's cliche to say, but after you do
It's
this enough
true.
time, you don't doubt the process. A lot of times,
Mm.
especially if you're a beginner level, is this working? How long do I need to do this? Should I cut yet? I'm going to tell you right now, 6 months isn't enough time to grow. It's just not. You want to grow?
No.
Think years.
Yeah.
Think years. So that's why one of a green flag that I look for in clients is I'm willing to grow as long as I need to, so is that my physique is improved by my next show, opposed to like I have to compete in this show, or I just competed, but I need to compete in this show that's in 8 months. So there's a huge difference there.
Right.
You're favoring the physique over what I want to do versus what's best for my physique. And that's what we're talking about. So being patient and going through these growth phases without pulling back, you know, and being consistent. If you're falling under your protein, if you're falling under your carbs, you can't get your food in, and that's happening over and over and over and over, and you can't really make these changes because you're going back and forth. I gain a pound, I drop 2 pounds, I gain a pound, drop another pound, half pound, not for because my body is regulating to the food or acclimating to the food, but because I'm not being consistent, that's going to impede on your progress big
Right.
time. Yeah, it doesn't seem like a big deal. And it's not a big deal if it happens a day or a week or whatever. But if that's happening frequently, that's an area for improvement. That's something that's
Sure.
going to be significant. So, um, yeah, there's genetic components to all this. Let's just face it. Some people are going to grow more than other people. It's just the
Some
way it is.
people are walking into this, yeah.
Yeah.
Some people are walking into the top tier levels of this sport and they're already world champions. Like it's like
And
they're
some of them aren't even trying to. Like
yeah.
it's just like genetic freaks out there, man. Like there just are. Like, and it's funny too, because like sometimes you could have a genetic freak like that, and you're just thinking, boy, but how freaky would they be if they did checked all these boxes?
Yeah, like dude, honestly, I know there's some natural, I'm not dogging anyone when I say this. There's some natural like IFBB pros out there that when you hear their protocol, you're like, you did what to get there? And you're like,
Yeah.
what? Really? What
Yeah.
if actually,
Yeah.
went with this approach and it's like the one that might be more sustainable? I'm like, I'm like, dude, you would be 10 times more deadly than you already are, and you already are
Yeah.
like a very fierce competitor. It's just it's mind blowing to me. Like it really is. But
Yeah. And
that's the
that's
net
just
that's
it
that's
though.
that's the nature
Yeah.
of the beast, you know? Some people are
Yeah.
just going to be more naturally and genetically inclined to it, and others aren't. But I don't chase it for that though, right? Like,
Right.
and I know you don't either. It's like you
Mm.
just I what motivates me, I guess, too. Motivation, yeah. But what
No, that's
motivates,
good.
yeah,
I mean, some
everyone
motivation is
has
good.
some,
Yeah, of
yeah,
course. Yeah.
some's good. But what motivates me is like seeing guys like Jeff Alberts, all of those guys, these old time, not old,
Jeff Alberts is 3D
3DMJ.
MJ. Yeah,
Yeah,
and he
he's in
won
his
like PMB show
well, he's won a few pro shows, but he's
or
like
world
quite a
championship, right?
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went to WNBF Worlds this past year, and got top five. He's like 52. It's like it's
Yeah.
just it's inspiring to me to see that, and motivating to see like, hey, this is a game of the older guys, right? Like the older you get, the more refined and mature your physique looks, and the better it looks. Like, I
That
mean,
is like a huge plus to doing this, man. So
yes,
like when we're in our 50s, God willing, whatever, everything goes according to plan.
yeah,
No disasters. By disasters, I mean no diseases, you don't get an
right.
accident, freak accident happens. You never know.
You never know.
You never know. If everything goes accordingly, when you're in your 50s and 60s, you can be a freak, dude.
You
A
could.
absolute freak of a bodybuilder. I remember that was one of the big draws when I was first competing, and I was at that show. I competed in that show that Jeff won. I competed
Oh,
as
that's sweet.
yeah. I'm trying to think.
Good way.
I was no, I was a pro, but I had just turned pro the previous show, and then I competed, and I I don't remember. I mean, I wasn't competing against him,
Yeah, yeah,
so but I saw him, and whenever you're backstage, you always see these freaks. You know what I mean? And they're older guys and stuff like that, and you just go, wow, I can't wait to be like that. And they're I mean 50, 60. That's I mean, who could say that? You know,
right.
that's
Not too
like
many
one of
guys.
the huge benefits of like the natty side of things, which is, and I don't care. I don't care if you're in hand. I don't care what you do. Do whatever you
Yeah, me
want.
neither. Do
We don't
whatever you want.
discriminate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but one of the benefits is the longevity and the slow growth. You don't just grow and then start to regress,
Right.
regress at 35, 40. By the time you're getting in 40, 50, you're that's where you're peaking. That's where you built the most amount of muscle tissue. That's where you have that muscle graininess, the maturity, the details. That's where you can get that nasty look when you get shredded. Well, that's hugely appealing to me.
That
I
is to me
I
too,
want to
man.
be looking my best when I'm that age. I want the younger kids at the gym to be like, "Holy hell, who is this freak? What is he doing?" And he looks healthy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't have like a ton of, side effects and things like that. This is just my journey. So that is something that's very appealing to me. It always has. It's always drawn me to the sport. And I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that's big picture. That's thinking like, okay,
Right.
patience, patience, patience. And then patience is like a skill. So
Yeah.
like the more I feel the bodybuilding is a skill for everything. If you could do bodybuilding, like you could do anything
It could
because
carry over into so many things in your life,
right,
man.
right.
You
I
know?
mean, it teaches you patience, it teaches you consistency, it teaches you about setbacks because nothing's perfect. You're always bouncing, you bounce back from different things. Teaches you to never give up. So it really does help you carry over into all these other areas. So
Agreed.
I mean, that's short term trying to think of short term, okay, so like seeing the strength go up, seeing a new vein
Yeah,
appear.
new
Okay. Do you
bicep
remember when
vein
you
come up.
first cut and you're like, there's like always like a vein you always wanted or something. You've seen it in pictures or whatever. And then you first experience it on yourself and you're like, this is new. There it is. Finally, I've always wanted this vein. Let's go. That's like short term, you know,
Right.
big picture. We're talking physique improvements. So I'm glad that you mentioned that you hadn't competed in 5 years. When will you? What's the plan going forward for you to compete? Because for me, I competed in 20. When did I compete?
You were just
Oh,
last year,
okay. I
weren't you?
just 2023. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm thinking 2026.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's right now. I don't want to compete before 2026. I don't think.
Yeah. If all the cards align right and I see what this fatherhood prediction is
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna see what that life looks like and make sure that's all good
Yeah.
prior.
Good.
So maybe like I'm thinking 2025 potentially is
2025. Okay. Cool.
yeah,
Cool. Cool.
potentially.
I
Yeah.
think
With all the
it's
cards
good to
play
have.
right.
It's good to have also. Yeah, like this is all like bodybuilding, and we did talk about intensity. Crank that intensity up in the gym, but when you're out having your meals, you don't need to be like, yeah, let's get this meal in. Just
Right.
eat, do some other stuff. I find the best bodybuilders have other stuff going on, other
100%.
passions. For me, I enjoyed the music, making dubstep, things like this. I have, even this podcast, doing different things. My mind is not thinking about bodybuilding when I'm outside of the gym.
Right.
I really don't. This is more acting in terms of like, I'm just gonna hit my macros.
Yeah.
I don't even think about it. Don't even think
Yeah.
about it.
100%, man. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I dive into my hobbies like basketball,
Yeah.
video games with my buddies, like and just, spending time with my wife, like in the dog, like
Yeah.
just, all those things. Like if you can't turn to those things when you're doing this process, then and you just have bodybuilding, well, that's not gonna last too much longer because
I
it's a
agree.
short fuse. You can easily shorten that fuse.
Yeah, you tend to burn out, and also
Hmm.
like if you're thinking about it, you're like more likely to stress about it and be like
Hmm.
neurotic. So that's
Yes.
something else to consider. So, all right, man, I think we touched on pretty much everything that I could think of in
Yeah.
terms of how to optimize muscle growth. Is there anything else you want to add? Anything you want to promote? What's going on? Also,
Well,
dude, I think the people can plan on seeing you a little bit more because we're gonna be bouncing some ideas back and forth, and kind of making this more of a regular thing. Either I don't know, we'll figure it out. We'll plan something maybe once a
yeah, for sure.
month, bi-weekly. I tend to like to have no set schedule.
Right.
I like to kind of keep things chill, like kind of do it as it comes.
Yeah, I
But
understand that.
I think our conversations are pretty damn valuable. So
I do too.
the people can expect to see more. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And definitely the only thing I want to get across is and thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate the
Hell yeah.
time. It's always awesome catching up, and I definitely think that I agree with we have a lot of similar perspectives on things and when it
Yeah.
comes to this. And but nonetheless, we just got these shirts in for coaches here on Arrival
Yeah, I
Coaches. If
haven't
you
got mine
guys,
yet, so
yeah,
I can't wait to get mine, and
yeah.
hopefully it'll fit me as well as it fits you so I could look like I got some muscles. All right.
No, it's yeah, but yeah, just check us out on unrivalcoaches.com and definitely give us a like, give us a follow on our Instagram page. We got a lot of good value coming and
Yeah, we're gonna
definitely
start getting some more stuff going over there too. We're just getting things rolling out, so we're taking our time and
yep.
doing things right. You
Yes.
know, the
Organically,
the
yes.
well, and also the work is in the work. The the work is the priority. The quality,
Yes.
the coaching, that's where all of our focus is as a team, is giving our clients the most that we can possibly give.
100%.
Really, really helping them. Everyone's heart's in the right place. So
Oh yeah.
that's but the next step is promotion and we do have some irons in the fire with that. So more
Yes,
on the
most
way coming
definitely.
soon. So
Yeah.
all right, Mike. Well, we'll talk soon. I'm sure you got a meal to get in. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go make my beef and tortilla meal myself.
I'm gonna go shuttle in my vegetables too, man. So we're
You're
good.
never gonna think about a tortilla or like a bagel. You're just gonna think about it as a shuttle.
Yeah, my green beans will be wrapped in chicken parm tonight. So,
All
so
right,
yeah.
man. I'll talk to you
Hey,
soon.
sounds good, brother. Take care.